The afternoon sun cast a warm, golden hue over the quaint suburban neighborhood, its rays dancing across the freshly cut lawns and meticulously maintained flower beds. As the day drifted lazily toward dusk, a new chapter was about to begin for a small, vulnerable soul. Sophia, a 6-year-old girl with wide, cautious eyes, stepped out of the social worker's car, her small hand clutching a worn-out stuffed bunny. The plush toy, faded and frayed at the edges, was the only remnant of the life she left behind. Her gaze swept over the house in front of her. A sprawling, welcoming structure with a white picket fence and cheerful garden gnomes that seemed to beckon her with their painted smiles. Laura and David, a couple whose faces radiated warmth and hope, stood at the doorstep. They exchanged glances filled with nervous anticipation. Laura, with her curly auburn hair pinned back in a loose bun, extended a hand to Sophia, her eyes soft with empathy. David, tall and broad-shouldered, wore a reassuring smile, though his own heart pounded with the gravity of the moment. "Hi there, Sophia," Laura said gently, crouching to Sophia's eye level. Her voice was like a comforting melody, meant to ease the child's anxiety. "We're so happy to meet you. My name is Laura, and this is David." Sophia hesitated, her fingers gripping the bunny tighter. She glanced at the inviting porch, the swing gently swaying in the breeze. The thought of a new home felt surreal, an unfamiliar mix of hope and fear swirling within her. With a tentative step forward, she allowed Laura to guide her up the walkway. The front door creaked open, revealing a cozy interior bathed in the soft glow of afternoon light. The scent of freshly baked cookies filled the air, a simple yet profound gesture meant to make Sophia feel at ease. David knelt beside her, offering a toy truck, a subtle attempt to bridge the gap between their worlds. As Sophia cautiously accepted the gift, Laura began to show her around the house, narrating the features with gentle enthusiasm. "This will be your room," Laura said, opening the door to a brightly decorated space with pastel colors and a small bed adorned with stuffed animals. "And over here is the playroom, where you can choose any toy you like." Sophia's eyes widened at the sight of the room, but her smile remained shy and guarded. She traced her fingers over the edge of the bed, feeling the softness of the new linens beneath her touch. David joined them, offering a warm smile and a gentle pat on the back. "How about we make a deal?" he suggested. "You pick your favorite toy from the playroom, and we'll have cookies and milk for a little snack. How does that sound?" Sophia's gaze flickered between the friendly faces of Laura and David and the inviting playroom. A hesitant nod was her first sign of trust, a small, fragile bridge being built between her past and this new beginning. As the day turned into evening, Sophia settled into her new surroundings. The house, once an intimidating maze of unfamiliarity, began to feel like a place where she might find solace. Laura and David exchanged a look of quiet relief, knowing that the journey ahead would require patience and love. They watched from the doorway of the playroom as Sophia slowly began to explore her new toys, her initial wariness softening with each new discovery. The sounds of her tentative laughter filled the house, a hopeful melody that promised a future where healing and happiness might eventually take root. And as nightfall descended, wrapping the world outside in a soft, dark embrace, the promise of a new beginning was just starting to unfold. Laura and David knew that while the road ahead would be challenging, this was the first step toward creating a home filled with love and understanding for a little girl who had endured so much. The morning light filtered softly through the curtains, casting gentle shadows across Sophia's newly decorated room. Laura peered in from the doorway, her heart warmed by the sight of Sophia still nestled in bed, clutching her stuffed bunny as if it were a lifeline. The house had started to feel like a home, and the initial anxiety that marked Sophia's arrival seemed to be melting away. Laura's footsteps were light as she entered the room, her voice a soothing murmur. "Good morning, Sophia. How did you sleep?" Sophia stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She met Laura's gaze with a sleepy smile, her shyness giving way to the comfort of familiarity. "I slept okay," she replied quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Laura sat on the edge of the bed, smoothing the covers with tender care. "Would you like to have breakfast downstairs? We have pancakes and fruit." Sophia's eyes brightened at the mention of pancakes, and she nodded eagerly. Yes, please. Downstairs, the kitchen was alive with the aroma of sizzling pancakes and the cheerful clatter of dishes. David was at the stove, flipping pancakes with practiced ease, his morning routine a dance of efficiency and care. Laura prepared a bowl of fresh fruit, glancing occasionally towards the stairs with a hopeful smile. As Sophia descended, her small feet patting softly on the wooden steps, Laura greeted her with a warm hug. Good morning again, sweetheart. Breakfast is almost ready. Sophia took her seat at the kitchen table, her eyes wide with curiosity as she surveyed the spread before her. The sight of the pancakes, stacked high and dripping with syrup, made her smile for the first time since arriving. Laura poured a glass of milk and set it before her. Thank you, Sophia said, her voice gaining a bit more confidence. The meal was filled with light conversation, and for a while, it seemed as though everything was perfectly ordinary. Laura and David exchanged glances of relief, pleased to see Sophia relaxing and beginning to open up. As the morning sun climbed higher in the sky, Laura decided it was time for Sophia to join her in the garden, where a small playground awaited. The backyard was a haven of vibrant colors and playful laughter, a stark contrast to the harsh reality Sophia had known. Laura hoped that spending time outside would help Sophia feel more at home. In the garden, Sophia's initial excitement about the swings and slide was palpable. She played quietly but with genuine enjoyment, her laughter mingling with the sound of birds chirping overhead. Laura watched from a nearby bench, her heart swelling with the hope that this simple act of kindness would make a lasting difference. It was during this peaceful moment, amidst the rustling leaves and the gentle hum of the breeze, that Sophia's demeanor shifted. She became quieter, her playful energy replaced by a contemplative stillness. Laura, noticing the change, approached her with gentle curiosity. Sophia, are you okay? You seem a bit thoughtful. Sophia looked up at Laura, her eyes clouded with a hint of fear. Can I tell you something? She asked hesitantly. Laura's heart skipped a beat. Of course, sweetie. You can tell me anything. Sophia took a deep breath, her tiny hands twisting the hem of her dress. When I lived before, I had to leave quickly because someone was looking for me. They wanted to take me away. Laura's breath caught in her throat. The sunny day seemed to dim around them as Sophia's words sank in. What do you mean, Sophia? Who were these people? Sophia's voice trembled as she continued. I don't know. I just remember being very scared. They hurt people, and I think they might come here too. Laura felt a chill run down her spine. She held Sophia's hand gently, trying to steady her own racing thoughts. Sophia, you're safe here. We'll make sure no one can hurt you, but it's important that you tell us everything you can about what happened. Sophia nodded, her fear evident but tempered by the fragile trust she was starting to place in Laura. I don't know much, just that I had to hide. Laura's mind raced as she processed the gravity of Sophia's revelation. The peaceful morning had been shattered by a single, chilling truth that hinted at dangers yet to come. As she comforted Sophia, promising her safety, Laura and David's world, which had seemed so inviting and hopeful, now felt precarious and uncertain. As the chapter closes, the initial warmth of Sophia's new life begins to fray at the edges, revealing a deeper, more unsettling reality that will challenge the very foundation of the life Laura and David hoped to build. The seemingly calm afternoon has given way to a looming tension, setting the stage for the trials and tribulations to come. The late afternoon sun filtered through the blinds of Laura and David's living room, casting striped shadows across the walls. The once cheery ambience of their home now seemed overshadowed by the gravity of Sophia's revelation. The couple sat side by side on their well-worn couch, their hands intertwined but their minds miles apart. David sighed deeply, his eyes fixed on the ceiling. Laura, what do we do now? This isn't just about providing a home for Sophia anymore. It feels like there's something much more dangerous lurking in the background. Laura's gaze was distant, her fingers absently tracing the patterns on the fabric of the couch. I know, David. I've been thinking about it all day. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but we need to be prepared. If there's even a chance that Sophia is in real danger, we have to act. David turned to face her, his expression troubled. But how do we even begin to address this? Do we get the authorities involved? And what if Sophia's fear is just a fragment of her imagination? Laura took a deep breath, her mind racing through the possibilities. I think we need to speak with a child psychologist first. They might help us understand what Sophia has gone through and how to best support her. And we should consider reaching out to the police, just to be on the safe side. But we need to approach this carefully. Sophia's trust in us is fragile. David nodded slowly, the weight of their decision settling heavily on his shoulders. Okay, I'll make the calls. But what about us? How do we handle this emotionally? Laura placed a comforting hand on David's knee. We take it one step at a time. We're in this together and we'll figure it out. We have to stay strong for Sophia. She's already been through so much. Just then, the doorbell rang, breaking the tension in the room. Laura and David exchanged a look, both of them feeling a sudden jolt of anxiety. Laura stood up and walked to the door, opening it to reveal a social worker, Ms. Harper, who had been involved in Sophia's placement. Hi, Laura. Hi, David. Can we talk for a moment? Ms. Harper asked, her voice professional but tinged with concern. They ushered Ms. Harper into the living room, where she took a seat opposite them. I wanted to check in and see how Sophia is adjusting. I understand there may be some concerns. Laura glanced at David before speaking. Yes, Ms. Harper. We've had some unsettling revelations from Sophia. She mentioned being scared of someone from her past and implied that they might come after her. Ms. Harper's face grew serious. I see. It's not uncommon for children in Sophia's situation to have fears that seem exaggerated, but it's important to take any potential threat seriously. I'll arrange for a child psychologist to meet with you and Sophia as soon as possible. And I recommend contacting the police to ensure there's a record of your concerns. David leaned forward, his voice tinged with frustration. We want to do everything we can to keep her safe, but it's hard to know if we're overreacting. What if we're just making things worse? Ms. Harper's expression softened. It's understandable to feel that way, but addressing these concerns is crucial for Sophia's well-being. By taking proactive steps, you're showing her that she's in a safe place and that you're committed to her protection. Laura and David absorbed her words, the gravity of their situation sinking in. As Ms. Harper stood to leave, she offered a reassuring smile. I'll be in touch soon. Remember, you're not alone in this. As the door closed behind Ms. Harper, Laura and David sat back down on the couch, the reality of their decision weighing heavily upon them. The warmth of the afternoon sun now seemed to do little to lighten the heavy atmosphere that surrounded them. Laura took David's hand once more, their fingers entwined in a shared moment of silent resolve. We need to stay focused and make sure we're doing everything we can for Sophia. It's not just about her safety, it's about her trust in us. We can't afford to falter. David squeezed her hand in response, his face a mask of determination. You're right. We'll face this together, no matter how difficult it gets. As the evening deepened and the first stars began to twinkle in the sky, the couple prepared to confront the challenges ahead. Their decision-making process was just beginning, and the path forward was fraught with uncertainty. But with their shared commitment and the support they were seeking, they resolved to face whatever came next with unwavering courage and dedication. The soft hum of the refrigerator was the only sound that broke the silence in Laura and David's kitchen that morning. The sun streamed through the windows, casting dappled light across the countertop where Laura stood, her hands resting on the edge as she stared out the window, lost in thought. David entered the room, holding a cup of coffee, his face etched with worry. Have you heard anything from Ms. Harper yet? Laura shook her head, her expression thoughtful. Not yet, but we need to focus on Sophia today. The appointment with the psychologist is set for this afternoon. I want to make sure everything goes smoothly. David nodded, setting his coffee down. I'm just anxious. We've barely scratched the surface of what might be going on. Their conversation was interrupted by a light knock on the door. Laura opened it to find Sophia standing there, clutching her stuffed bunny and gazing up with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Her small frame was slightly hunched, as though she carried a burden that was too heavy for her age. "Good morning, Sophia," Laura said gently, kneeling to meet her at eye level. "Are you ready for our outing today?" Sophia nodded, though her eyes were clouded with worry. "I'm a little scared. What if the people from before come here?" Laura's heart ached at Sophia's fear. She took Sophia's hand and led her to the living room, where David joined them. "We're going to meet a friend who can help us understand things better. She's very nice and knows a lot about helping kids feel safe." Sophia's grip tightened on Laura's hand, but she managed a small nod. "Okay." The car ride to the psychologist's office was quiet, with Sophia staring out the window as if hoping to find answers in the passing scenery. Laura and David exchanged glances, their minds preoccupied with the same question. What was hidden in Sophia's past that made her so fearful? When they arrived, the office building was a modest, welcoming space, with soothing colors and a friendly receptionist. Laura and David led Sophia inside, their hearts heavy with anticipation. They were soon greeted by Dr. Matthews, a kind-eyed woman with a calm demeanor that immediately put them at ease. "Hello, Laura," David. "And you must be Sophia," Dr. Matthews said, her voice gentle. "Let's have a seat and talk a bit before we start." Sophia hesitated, her fingers clutching her bunny as she followed them into the office. The room was softly lit, with comfortable chairs and shelves lined with toys and books. Dr. Matthews gestured to a small play area. "Why don't you take a seat here, Sophia? We'll talk and play a little." Sophia slowly approached the play area, her eyes scanning the toys with a mix of curiosity and trepidation. As she picked up a puzzle piece, Dr. Matthews began speaking to Laura and David. "I understand Sophia has been through a lot," Dr. Matthews began. "Children in her situation often carry hidden fears. It's crucial to create a safe space where she feels comfortable sharing." Laura and David nodded, their concern palpable. "She mentioned something about people from her past who might be after her," Laura said, her voice trembling slightly. "We're not sure what to make of it." Dr. Matthews listened intently, her brow furrowing in concentration. "It's not uncommon for children to have fragmented memories or fears that don't always make sense to us. But it's important to approach this with patience and care." As they spoke, Sophia began to open up, her small voice breaking the silence. "I remember, there were people who wanted to take me away. They were angry and scary. I had to hide and run a lot." Dr. Matthews nodded thoughtfully, her eyes gentle. "Sophia, it's very brave of you to talk about this. You're safe now, and no one will hurt you here. Can you tell me more about what you remember?" Sophia hesitated, then spoke slowly. "They were always looking for me. I had to keep moving. I didn't have a home. And there was a place where they kept people. I was hiding there when they came." Laura and David exchanged worried glances. The vague details were unsettling, hinting at a more complex and possibly dangerous situation than they had imagined. Dr. Matthews leaned forward, her voice soothing. "Sophia, you did very well telling us about this. It's important to remember that you're safe now, and we will help you. We'll work together to understand what happened and make sure you're protected." As the session came to a close, Laura and David felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. They had learned more about Sophia's fears, but the full extent of her past remained shrouded in mystery. Leaving the office, the family walked back to the car, Sophia clutching her bunny tightly, her earlier apprehension somewhat eased by Dr. Matthews' reassuring presence. Laura and David knew they had taken the first step in unraveling the secrets of Sophia's past, but the journey ahead was far from over. The afternoon sun cast long shadows as they drove home, the day's revelations hanging heavy in the air. With each passing mile, Laura and David prepared themselves for the challenges that lay ahead, determined to protect and support Sophia as they pieced together the fragments of her past. The morning light streamed through the half-open blinds, illuminating the small but cozy kitchen where Laura and David were having breakfast. The air was filled with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and warm toast. But today, even these comforting elements did little to lift their spirits. Laura stirred her coffee absent-mindedly while David flipped through the local newspaper, his brow furrowed. "Have you seen this?" he asked, turning the paper towards Laura. The headline read, "Neighborhood concerns over new family in the area." Laura's eyes widened as she read the article. It detailed the community's apprehension about their new neighbors, specifically mentioning the arrival of Sophia and the potential impact on local safety. "This isn't good," Laura said, her voice tinged with worry. "We were hoping to keep a low profile, but now it seems like the community is already on edge." David set the paper down with a sigh. "We can't let this affect our efforts to help Sophia, but we do need to address these concerns before they spiral out of control." Just then, the doorbell rang, jolting them from their conversation. Laura opened the door to find Mrs. Thompson, their elderly neighbor, standing there with a concerned expression. "Good morning, Laura," Mrs. Thompson said, her tone polite but serious. "I hope I'm not interrupting. I'd like to discuss something with you." Laura invited her in, and the three of them sat at the kitchen table. Mrs. Thompson took a deep breath before speaking. "I've heard some troubling things about Sophia's past. I understand you're trying to do a good deed, but people are talking. They're worried about safety, and I think we need to address these concerns openly." David leaned forward, his tone earnest. "We understand the community's concerns, and we want to address them. But Sophia's safety is our top priority, and we need support, not suspicion. How can we work together to ease these fears?" Mrs. Thompson nodded thoughtfully. "I appreciate your willingness to address this. Maybe hosting a neighborhood meeting would help. You can explain your situation and reassure everyone about Sophia's safety." Laura looked at David, who nodded in agreement. "That sounds like a good idea. We'll organize a meeting and make sure to answer everyone's questions." Later that week, Laura and David prepared for the neighborhood meeting, making sure they had all the information they needed to address concerns and offer reassurance. As they walked through the door of the community center, a small crowd of concerned neighbors was already gathered, their expressions a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Laura and David took their seats at the front, and David began speaking, his voice steady but carrying an undertone of nervousness. "Thank you all for coming. We wanted to address the concerns that have been raised about our new neighbor, Sophia. Our main priority is her safety and well-being, and we hope to provide some clarity." Laura followed up, her tone warm and open. "Sophia is a young girl who has been through a lot. We're doing everything we can to make sure she feels safe and supported. We understand that this situation is new and may seem unsettling, but we're here to answer any questions and share what we know." The crowd murmured, and a few hands went up. A middle-aged man with a stern expression spoke first. "How do we know she's really safe? What if there are people who might come looking for her?" Laura took a deep breath, her heart pounding. "We're working with professionals, including child psychologists and local authorities, to ensure Sophia's safety. We're committed to keeping our home and the neighborhood safe. If you have any specific concerns, please let us know, and we'll do our best to address them." A young woman raised her hand next, her tone more empathetic. "I understand you're doing everything you can, but it's hard not to worry. How can we support you?" David's face softened with gratitude. "We appreciate your understanding. Your support means a lot to us. If you hear anything or have concerns, please come to us directly. Open communication will help us all feel more secure." The meeting continued with a mix of questions and expressions of support. By the end, the tension in the room had eased somewhat, and many neighbors seemed more reassured. Laura and David thanked everyone for their time and commitment to keeping the community united. As they left the community center, Laura and David felt a sense of relief mixed with lingering anxiety. The meeting had gone better than expected, but they knew there was still work to be done to fully integrate Sophia into their lives and ensure the community's acceptance. Back home, Sophia was playing quietly in her room, her bunny clutched in her arms. Laura and David exchanged a look of determination as they prepared for the next steps. They knew that navigating the challenges of community acceptance was just one part of their journey, but it was a crucial step in providing Sophia with the stability and support she needed. As the evening settled in, the neighborhood began to return to its usual rhythm and Laura and David resolved to continue their efforts, united in their commitment to Sophia and their new community. The early morning light filtered through the gauzy curtains of Laura and David's bedroom, casting a soft glow on the room. Laura lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. The neighborhood meeting had been a step in the right direction, but it hadn't fully settled her worries. The challenges they faced were becoming more complex, and the strain was beginning to show. David's gentle breathing beside her was a reminder of how close they had grown in this turbulent time. He stirred and turned toward her, his eyes opening to meet hers. "Are you still awake?" he asked softly. Laura sighed, turning to face him. "I can't help but worry. I keep thinking about Sophia's past and how it might affect her future. We're doing everything we can, but it feels like we're walking a tightrope." David reached out and took her hand, his touch both comforting and firm. "We're in this together. We're making progress and we'll keep doing our best. It's okay to feel uncertain, but remember why we're doing this. Sophia needs us." Laura nodded, appreciating his support but still feeling the weight of their situation. "I just keep wondering if we're doing enough. What if we're missing something important? What if her past catches up with us?" As the days passed, Laura found herself grappling with her internal fears. Each time she saw Sophia's hopeful eyes, she was reminded of the responsibility she carried. During the day, Laura tried to maintain a brave face, but at night, the doubts returned, haunting her dreams. One evening, Laura decided to take a walk to clear her mind. The neighborhood was bathed in the golden hues of sunset, and the familiar sights of their quiet street offered a brief respite from her worries. She wandered aimlessly, her thoughts tangled in a web of anxiety. Suddenly, she heard footsteps behind her. Turning around, she saw Mrs. Thompson approaching, her expression concerned. "Laura, I've been meaning to check in. How are things going with Sophia?" Laura forced a smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "We're making progress, but it's been tough. I'm worried about how she's adjusting and if we're missing anything." Mrs. Thompson's gaze softened. "It's natural to feel this way. You're doing a lot for her. Sometimes we need to give ourselves permission to take a step back and breathe. You're not alone in this." Laura took a deep breath, her voice trembling slightly. "Thank you. I just wish things were easier. I want to make sure Sophia feels safe and loved, but I also need to find a way to manage my own fears." Mrs. Thompson nodded understandingly. "It's okay to have these feelings. It shows how much you care. Just remember to take care of yourself, too. You can't pour from an empty cup." As Laura walked home, her mind felt slightly lighter. Mrs. Thompson's words resonated with her, reminding her that she needed to find a balance between her fears and her role in Sophia's life. Back at home, Laura found David in the kitchen, preparing dinner. His focused demeanor and the smell of cooking comforted her. She joined him, offering a genuine smile. "I had a good conversation with Mrs. Thompson. She reminded me that it's okay to feel overwhelmed sometimes." David glanced at her, his expression filled with warmth. "It's important to listen to those reminders. We're doing our best, and that's all we can ask of ourselves." They worked side by side, the simple act of preparing a meal together helping to ease Laura's anxiety. As they sat down to eat, they talked about their plans for the coming days, trying to focus on the positive aspects of their journey. Later that night, Laura and David sat on the porch, watching the stars emerge in the clear sky. The tranquility of the evening was a stark contrast to the turmoil Laura had been feeling. David took her hand, his touch reassuring. "Laura," he said quietly, "we've faced challenges before, and we've always managed to get through them. This is no different. We just need to keep supporting each other and stay focused on what matters." Laura looked at him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of gratitude and resolve. "You're right. We're in this together, and I'll keep reminding myself that our efforts are making a difference." As they sat in the stillness of the night, Laura felt a renewed sense of determination. The internal struggle she had been facing was far from over, but she knew that with David by her side and their commitment to Sophia, they could navigate the challenges ahead. The early morning sun filtered through the windows of Laura and David's home, casting a warm glow over their kitchen table. Laura sat at the table, her laptop open in front of her, as she made a list of potential community outreach ideas. David was on the phone, discussing plans with a local child psychologist to ensure Sophia's well-being was being monitored professionally. The tension in the room was palpable as Laura typed furiously, her brow furrowed in concentration. She glanced up as David hung up, his expression a mixture of relief and concern. That was Dr. Fields. She's available to meet with us next week to discuss Sophia's progress. Laura nodded, her eyes still glued to the screen. That's good. I'm also trying to come up with ways to increase community engagement. We need to show everyone that Sophia's situation is being handled with care and professionalism. David walked over and looked at the list Laura had compiled. Have you thought about organizing a community event? Something that could bring people together and help them get to know Sophia better. Laura looked up, a spark of interest in her eyes. That's actually a great idea. We could have a small gathering at the park, with activities for kids and opportunities for neighbors to interact in a relaxed setting. David smiled, his support evident. Let's do it. We can make it a casual get-together where people can ask questions and learn more about Sophia and our intentions. That weekend, Laura and David set to work organizing the event. They put up flyers around the neighborhood and enlisted the help of local volunteers to make the gathering a success. The park was transformed into a lively space with colorful banners, tables of snacks, and activities for children. As the day of the event approached, Laura's anxiety resurfaced. She and David were at the park early, setting up and ensuring everything was in place. Despite the cheerful decorations and the lively atmosphere, Laura couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty. The event began with a steady flow of families arriving, their faces a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Laura greeted each guest with a warm smile, trying to dispel any lingering doubts about Sophia. David manned the activity tables, engaging with the children and ensuring they were having a good time. In the midst of the festivities, Sophia played with a group of local kids, her laughter ringing through the park. Laura watched from a distance, her heart both heavy and hopeful. She saw Mrs. Thompson approaching, her demeanor friendly but still cautious. "Laura," Mrs. Thompson said, giving a nod towards Sophia. "It's nice to see the children interacting like this. It seems like Sophia is fitting in well." Laura nodded, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "We're trying to make her feel as comfortable as possible. It's important for her to feel like she belongs here." Mrs. Thompson glanced around at the event, her expression thoughtful. "I think this is a positive step. It shows that you're making an effort to integrate Sophia into the community and address any concerns openly." As the event continued, Laura and David took turns speaking with neighbors, addressing their questions and concerns. They emphasized their commitment to Sophia's safety and well-being, and many neighbors seemed to respond positively. However, as the sun began to set, Laura noticed a group of people huddled together in a corner of the park, whispering amongst themselves. Her anxiety flared up again. Were they discussing concerns about Sophia or simply discussing the day's events? David joined Laura, his expression serious. "I saw that group over there. Do you think we should check in with them?" Laura nodded, her nerves on edge. "Yes. Let's find out what's going on." They approached the group, and one of the neighbors, Mr. Harrison, spoke up. "Laura, David, I wanted to talk to you about something. We've been discussing how the event went, and we appreciate the effort you're putting in. But there are still some lingering concerns about Sophia's past and how it might affect the community." Laura took a deep breath, her heart racing. "We understand your concerns. We're doing everything we can to ensure Sophia's safety and well-being. If there are specific issues you'd like to address, we're open to discussing them." Mr. Harrison looked at Laura and David with a thoughtful expression. "We appreciate your openness. Maybe having regular updates or check-ins with the community could help reassure everyone. Transparency might ease some of the concerns." Laura and David exchanged a look, nodding in agreement. "That's a good suggestion," Laura said. "We'll consider setting up regular updates to keep everyone informed." As the event drew to a close, Laura and David felt a mix of relief and exhaustion. They had managed to address many concerns and fostered a sense of community, but the journey was far from over. They knew that continued efforts and open communication would be crucial in gaining the community's full trust. As they packed up the remaining items and prepared to head home, Laura felt a renewed sense of determination. They had taken significant steps toward integrating Sophia into their lives and the community, but the road ahead would require perseverance and ongoing commitment. Laura glanced at David, who was busy folding up a banner. "We've made progress today. It's just a matter of continuing to build on these efforts." David looked up, his eyes meeting hers with a reassuring smile. "We're on the right track. We'll keep moving forward, one step at a time." The evening settled in, and as Laura and David left the park, they felt a cautious optimism. The challenges were far from over, but they were committed to facing them together, with Sophia's future at the heart of their efforts. The crisp autumn air was filled with the scent of fallen leaves and the distant hum of lawn mowers as Laura sat on the porch, her thoughts as scattered as the leaves around her. The neighborhood event had been a mixed bag. Some successes, some setbacks, but now a new challenge loomed. Laura stared at the envelope in her hands, its official-looking seal ominously heavy. It was an anonymous letter that had arrived earlier that day, its contents a stark reminder of the community's lingering doubts about Sophia. With trembling hands, she opened it and began to read. "Laura and David, we appreciate the efforts you've made, but it's clear that your actions are not enough to ensure the safety of our community. We have serious concerns about Sophia's past and her potential impact on our children. Until these issues are addressed to our satisfaction, we will not feel comfortable with her remaining in our neighborhood." Laura's heart sank as she read the final lines. The letter concluded with a chilling statement. "If you continue to ignore our concerns, we may have no choice but to escalate this matter further." The sense of dread that had been building within her now felt palpable. She put the letter down, her hands shaking. Just then, David walked out onto the porch, having returned from a meeting with a community outreach coordinator. "Laura? What's wrong?" David asked, noticing her pale face and the crumpled letter in her hand. Laura handed him the letter, her voice barely a whisper. "It's from someone in the community. They're not satisfied with what we've done. They're threatening to escalate things if we don't address their concerns." David's face grew serious as he read through the letter. When he finished, he looked up at Laura with a troubled expression. "This is exactly what we were afraid of. It feels like no matter what we do, there are always going to be people who doubt us." Laura nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I thought we were making progress, but now it feels like we're back to square one. I don't know what else we can do." David reached out and took her hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "We can't give up now. We've come too far to let this defeat us. We need to find a way to address these concerns head-on and show that we're committed to making things right." Laura wiped her eyes and nodded, taking a deep breath. "Okay, what's our next step?" David's mind was already racing with ideas. "We need to organize a community meeting, one where everyone can voice their concerns openly. Transparency is key. Let's bring in experts who can speak to Sophia's situation and our commitment to her well-being." The decision made, Laura and David set to work organizing the meeting. They reached out to Dr. Fields and other professionals who could provide credible insights into Sophia's situation. The meeting was scheduled for the following week, and the anticipation and anxiety in the community were palpable. As the day of the meeting approached, Laura and David felt a mounting sense of pressure. They knew that this was their chance to address the community's concerns directly and demonstrate their dedication to Sophia's future. The evening of the meeting arrived, and the local community center was filled with an uneasy buzz. Laura and David stood at the front of the room, flanked by Dr. Fields and other experts. The room was packed with concerned neighbors, their faces a mix of curiosity and skepticism. David stepped up to the microphone, his voice steady but tinged with resolve. "Thank you all for coming. We understand that there are concerns about Sophia and her place in our community. Tonight, we want to address those concerns openly and provide you with the information you need to feel confident about our efforts." Dr. Fields and the other experts began to speak, providing detailed insights into Sophia's situation. the support she was receiving, and the measures in place to ensure her well-being. The presentation was thorough, covering everything from psychological assessments to community support strategies. As the expert spoke, Laura noticed a shift in the room. Some of the skepticism remained, but there was a growing sense of understanding among the audience. After the presentations, there was a Q&A session where residents could voice their concerns and get answers directly from the experts. One of the community members, Mrs. Parker, stood up and asked a pointed question about how they plan to address potential safety concerns in the future. Laura and David responded, detailing their commitment to regular updates and ongoing community engagement. The meeting continued with a series of discussions and debates, but by the end of the evening, it was clear that the transparency and openness had made a significant impact. While not all doubts were erased, there was a noticeable shift in the community's attitude. As Laura and David left the meeting, they felt a mix of exhaustion and cautious optimism. The breaking point had been a challenge, but they had faced it head-on, demonstrating their commitment to Sophia and their willingness to address concerns transparently. In the quiet of the night, as Laura and David walked home, they felt a renewed sense of determination. The road ahead was still uncertain, but they knew that by continuing to engage openly and honestly, they could overcome the challenges that lay ahead. The first rays of dawn pierced through the curtains, gently illuminating the quiet house. Laura and David sat at the kitchen table, sipping their coffee in silence. The weight of the previous night's meeting hung heavy in the air. Despite the mixed reactions from the community, they were determined to push forward. As Laura scanned the local news website on her laptop, David reviewed the feedback from the meeting. The stark contrast between the initial hostility and the emerging signs of understanding was both encouraging and exhausting. Laura sighed and closed her laptop, her mind racing. David, do you think we've made enough progress? I still worry that some people might not be convinced. David placed his hand over hers, offering a reassuring smile. We've come a long way. People are starting to see our genuine commitment. It's a gradual process, but we're heading in the right direction. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of Sophia's laughter echoing from the living room. Laura and David exchanged a look of warmth and relief. Despite the turmoil, Sophia's happiness was a constant reminder of why they were fighting so hard. As they moved to the living room, they found Sophia playing with a new set of building blocks, her little hands carefully constructing a colorful tower. Laura knelt beside her, joining in the game. Look at you, building something amazing. Sophia beamed, her eyes sparkling with joy. I'm making a castle, and there's a place for everyone to live. David watched, his heart swelling with emotion. You're creating something wonderful, Sophia, just like we're trying to do for you. Later that day, Laura and David prepared for another community event. This time, a small neighborhood picnic designed to bring people together in a more relaxed setting. They hoped it would further bridge the gap between Sophia and the rest of the community. As the afternoon sun bathed the park in a golden hue, families began to arrive, their faces more open and receptive than before. Laura and David greeted them warmly, their efforts clearly making a positive impression. Sophia ran up to David, clutching a colorful drawing she had made at school. Look, Daddy, I drew a picture of our family and all my friends. David smiled and took the drawing, his eyes misty with pride. It's beautiful, Sophia. You've put so much love into it. The picnic was a resounding success. Neighbors mingled, enjoyed delicious food, and participated in games with their children. The atmosphere was light and cheerful, a stark contrast to the tense mood of the previous meetings. As the sun began to set, Laura and David found themselves standing by a makeshift stage where a local band played soft music. They looked around at the community, their hearts filled with hope. Mrs. Parker approached them, her expression more relaxed than before. Laura, David, I wanted to thank you for organizing this. It's nice to see everyone coming together and enjoying themselves. The concerns are still there, but tonight feels different. Laura nodded, her voice steady. We're committed to continuing these efforts and ensuring that Sophia feels welcomed and safe here. Mrs. Parker smiled warmly. I can see that. It's clear that you're putting in a lot of effort, and it's starting to make a difference. As the evening wound down, Laura and David took a moment to themselves, sitting on a bench and watching Sophia play with her new friends. The transformation in the community was tangible, and the sense of camaraderie was palpable. David reached out and took Laura's hand, his eyes reflecting the soft glow of the setting sun. "We've faced so many challenges, but seeing Sophia happy and the community coming together makes it all worth it." Laura squeezed his hand, her heart full. "We still have a long way to go, but tonight feels like a turning point. Maybe redemption is within reach." The stars began to twinkle in the twilight sky, and the park was filled with the sounds of laughter and contentment. Laura and David knew that their journey was far from over, but they felt a renewed sense of purpose and hope. As they left the park hand in hand, they were filled with a quiet confidence. The road to redemption was still unfolding, but the progress they had made was undeniable. They were determined to continue their efforts, not just for Sophia, but for the entire community they were now a part of. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow over the breakfast table. Laura and David sat together, their faces relaxed and filled with a sense of accomplishment. The challenges they had faced felt like they were finally behind them, and a new chapter awaited them. Sophia bounded into the room, her excitement palpable. "Mommy, Daddy, today's the big day. I'm starting my new school." Laura looked at David, her eyes reflecting both pride and nervousness. "Yes, sweetheart. Today is a big day for all of us." David reached out and ruffled Sophia's hair affectionately. "Are you ready for your new adventure?" Sophia nodded enthusiastically, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. "I can't wait to meet my new friends and learn new things." As they finished breakfast, Laura and David helped Sophia get ready, their hands moving with practiced ease. The morning was filled with the usual rush, but there was an added sense of excitement and hope that permeated the air. The drive to the school was filled with cheerful chatter from Sophia and gentle encouragement from her parents. Laura and David exchanged glances, their hearts swelling with pride and hope for Sophia's future. When they arrived at the school, the atmosphere was buzzing with the energy of a new school year. Parents and children milled about, and the excitement was almost tangible. Laura and David led Sophia to her classroom, where they were greeted by Mrs. Thompson, her new teacher. Mrs. Thompson welcomed them with a warm smile. "Welcome, Sophia. We're so glad to have you join our class. I've heard wonderful things about you." Sophia's shyness melted away under Mrs. Thompson's kind demeanor. "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. I'm excited to be here." As Laura and David prepared to leave, Sophia hugged them tightly. "I'll see you after school." David knelt down and looked into Sophia's eyes. "Have a great day, sweetheart. We're so proud of you." Laura waved as Sophia joined her new classmates, her heart full as she watched her daughter's first steps into this new chapter of her life. The day passed in a blur of meetings and preparations for Laura and David. They had been working tirelessly to solidify their place in the community and ensure that their efforts for Sophia were met with continued support. The culmination of their work was evident in the community's growing acceptance and warmth. By the time Laura and David arrived back at the school to pick up Sophia, their spirits were high. They were eager to hear about Sophia's day and to share in her excitement. Sophia ran to them, her face glowing with joy. "Mommy, Daddy, I made so many new friends today, and we did a fun art project." Laura's eyes sparkled with tears of happiness. "That's wonderful, Sophia. We're so glad you had a great day." As they walked to the car, Laura and David reflected on the journey they had been through. The challenges, the setbacks, and the breakthroughs had all led to this moment. A new beginning for their family and a promising future for Sophia. Back at home, Laura and David settled into the evening with a sense of contentment. The house felt different, lighter, as if the weight of the past had been lifted. They sat together, reflecting on their journey and the lessons they had learned. David took Laura's hand and squeezed it gently. "We did it, Laura. We faced so many obstacles, but we've come through stronger and more united than ever." Laura smiled, her heart full. "Yes, we have. And Sophia's new beginning is just the start of a brighter future for all of us." The night drew in, and as they prepared for bed, Laura and David felt a renewed sense of hope and excitement for what lay ahead. The future was still unknown, but they were ready to face it together, with Sophia by their side. In the quiet of the night, Laura and David shared a moment of peace, knowing that their efforts had paved the way for a new beginning. Their family was stronger, their community more connected, and their hearts full of hope. As they drifted off to sleep, the promise of a new chapter filled the air, and the world outside seemed a little brighter, a little more hopeful than it had been before. Click on the video being recommended to you now.